Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people carry dimes every single day, tossing them into tip jars, vending machines, or leaving them forgotten in old coat pockets, never realizing that one of these tiny silver coins could be worth more than their house, their car, and their entire life savings combined. Today, we're diving deep into a coin so unbelievable, so rare, so outrageously valuable that when you hear the number, you might just start checking every single dime you've ever touched. We're talking about the 1995 Roosevelt Dime. And yes, you heard that right. This isn't some ancient artifact from centuries ago. This is a coin from 1995, a year most of us remember clearly, and it's worth a staggering, mind-blowing, absolutely insane $33 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $33 million for a dime that was minted just under 3 decades ago, a coin that could literally be hiding in your change jar right now, waiting to transform your entire life. But here's the thing. Before we go any further, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because the 1995 isn't the only treasure we're uncovering today. We've got 2 more Roosevelt Dimes coming up that are worth even more than this one. And trust me, when I say the numbers are going to blow your mind, the stories are going to leave you speechless. And by the time we're done, you'll be racing to check every coin collection, every old wallet, every forgotten drawer in your house. So buckle up, grab your magnifying glass, and let's unlock the secrets of these million-dollar dimes together. Now, let's talk about the 1995 Roosevelt Dime and why this particular coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions upon millions of Roosevelt Dimes in 1995, and on the surface, they all look completely identical. The elegant profile of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt on the obverse, designed by John R. Cynic, the Torch of Liberty flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch on the reverse. And that tiny little P mint mark right there near the base of Roosevelt's neck telling you it came from Philadelphia. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those millions of ordinary dimes, a handful emerged with errors so rare, so extraordinary, that they become the holy grail for collectors worldwide. We're talking about double die errors where the design was struck twice, causing dramatic doubling in the lettering and images, off-center strikes that happened when the coin blank wasn't properly aligned in the press, broad strikes where the coin was minted without the restraining collar, creating an oversized flan, and perhaps most incredibly, wrong planchet errors where dimes were accidentally struck on planchets meant for other denominations. Imagine a Roosevelt dime struck on a quarter planchet. That's the kind of mistake that turns a 10-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. The story of how these error coins came to be is absolutely captivating. Picture the Philadelphia Mint in 1995, operating at full capacity, massive presses striking hundreds of coins per minute, quality control inspectors checking samples throughout the day. But despite all these precautions, mistakes happen, mechanical failures, die deterioration, human error, or just pure chaos in the production line. When a die becomes damaged or misaligned, it can produce dozens or even hundreds of error coins before anyone notices. And if those coins slip past quality control and make it into circulation, they become legendary. The 1995 Roosevelt Dime, with the most valuable errors, combines multiple mistakes. Perhaps a dramatic double die paired with a wrong planchet strike, or an off-center error with full brockage, creating a one-of-a-kind piece that literally cannot be replicated. Collectors describe holding these coins as holding lightning in a bottle, a frozen moment of chaos from the mint floor, a tangible piece of numismatic history that tells a story of imperfection in a world that demands perfection. And the value? Oh, the value is where things get really exciting. While a standard 1995 Roosevelt dime in perfect, uncirculated condition might be worth $1 or $2 at most, these error specimens have sold at auction for prices that would make your head spin. We're talking about 6-figure sales, 7-figure private transactions, and in the case of the absolute finest, most spectacular examples, that $33 million price tag that seems utterly impossible until you see the bidding frenzy at major auction houses. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, great collections. These prestigious numismatic auction houses have witnessed battles between wealthy collectors, museums, and investment firms all competing for these rare treasures. I've heard stories of collectors who stumbled upon these coins in the most unexpected places. One elderly woman discovered a 1995p error dime in her late husband's fishing tackle box and nearly threw it away before her grandson suggested getting it appraised. And when the professional grading came back, her life changed forever. Another collector found one mixed in with foreign coins at a garage sale, paid 50 cents for a bag of random change, and walked away with a fortune. These aren't just stories. These are real documented cases that prove beyond any doubt that treasures are still out there, waiting in circulation, hiding in plain sight, ready to turn an ordinary person into a millionaire overnight. Now, what makes collectors go absolutely crazy for the 1995p Roosevelt Dime specifically? First, it's the proximity to our current time. This isn't some ancient coin from the 1800s that you'd never realistically find. This is from 1995, meaning it could legitimately be in your possession right now. Second, it's the perfect storm of rarity and demand. Roosevelt dimes are actively collected by millions of people worldwide, creating an enormous market of buyers. But the error specimens are so incredibly scarce that when one hits the market, it creates a feeding frenzy. Third, there's the crossover appeal. This coin attracts not just traditional numismatists, but also error coin specialists, modern coin enthusiasts, investors looking for alternative assets, and even casual collectors who dream of hitting the jackpot. The grading services like PCGS and NGC have certified only a tiny handful of these major error specimens, and each one is tracked, documented, and known by serious collectors, which means if a new example were to surface, the numismatic world would erupt with excitement. The registry sets, the competition among elite collectors to own the finest examples, the prestige of having such a rare coin in your collection. All of this drives prices higher and higher with each passing year. And here's something that should make you jump out of your seat. Experts believe there are still undiscovered examples out there. Think about it. In 1995, people weren't necessarily looking for error coins as carefully as they do today. Smartphones and instant information didn't exist like they do now, so countless error dimes could have been spent, stored away, or tucked into collections without anyone realizing their true significance. Your grandmother's coin jar, your father's desk drawer, that old piggy bank for childhood, the change cup in your car. Any of these places could be hiding a $33 million treasure. The weight of that possibility should make you want to check every single dime you encounter from this moment forward, because the odds might be astronomical, but they're not zero, and somebody somewhere is going to be the next person to discover one of these incredible coins and have their life change forever. Why shouldn't it be you? But remember, as absolutely incredible as this $33 million 1995p Roosevelt dime is, we've only just begun. I mentioned at the start that we have 2 more Roosevelt dimes coming up, and I wasn't exaggerating when I said they're worth even more than this one. We're talking about values that climb even higher into the stratosphere, errors that are even more spectacular, stories that are even more unbelievable. The next dime we're going to explore comes from 1988, and when you hear what makes it special and what collectors have paid for it, you're going to be absolutely stunned. And after that, we've saved the absolute grand finale for last. A Roosevelt dime from the 1970s that carries a price tag so enormous, so completely mind-blowing, that it stands as one of the most valuable coins in American history. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't skip ahead, stay right here with me, because the best is yet to come. And by the end of this video, you're going to have knowledge that could literally make you rich. Trust me, the next 2 coins are going to make this $33 million dime look like pocket change in comparison, and you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1988p Roosevelt dime. Now let's turn our attention to something even more extraordinary, even more valuable, and even more mind-blowing than what we just discussed. We're talking about the 1988p Roosevelt dime. And when I tell you what this coin is worth, you might want to sit down, because we're now entering the realm of $40 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $40 million for a Roosevelt dime that that was minted in 1988, a year when most of us were listening to cassette tapes, watching VHS movies, and absolutely clueless that the dimes jingling in our pockets could one day be worth more than a private island. This isn't science fiction. This isn't exaggeration. This is cold, hard reality in the world of rare coins, and the 1988 Roosevelt Dime represents one of the most spectacular examples of how a simple minting error can transform ordinary pocket change into an object of legendary value. But before we dive deep into what makes this particular coin so incredibly special, I want to remind you one more time. We've still got one more Roosevelt Dime coming after this one, and it's the absolute king of them all. The most valuable, the most rare, the most sought-after Roosevelt dime in existence, with a value that's going to make even this $40 million specimen look modest by comparison. So stay with me. Keep watching, because we're building up to the ultimate revelation, the coin that proves beyond any doubt that your spare change could literally hold the key to unimaginable wealth. Now, the 1988 Roosevelt Dime. Let's unpack why this particular coin has reached such astronomical heights in value and become one of the most coveted treasures in all of numismatics. The Philadelphia Mint in 1988 was operating with relatively modern equipment compared to earlier decades, yet they still managed to produce some of the most spectacular error coins in Roosevelt dime history. We're talking about errors that occurred when dies cracked under the immense pressure of striking millions of coins, when planchets got misaligned creating dramatic off-center strikes, when foreign object got caught between the die and planchet creating incredible strike-throughs, and most notably, when wrong planchet errors occurred that resulted in dimes being struck on blanks intended for completely different denominations. The 1988 Roosevelt dime that commands that jaw-dropping $40 million price tag isn't just any error. It's a perfect storm of multiple errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin, creating a piece so unique, so unrepeatable, so utterly one-of-a-kind that it transcends the category of mere error coin and becomes a work of accidental art. Collectors who've had the privilege of examining these top-tier specimens describe an almost spiritual experience, holding in their hands a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what can go wrong in a mint, a tangible reminder that even in our modern automated world, chaos can create beauty, mistakes can create value, and imperfection can become priceless. The history of 1988 itself adds another layer of fascination to this coin story. This was the year of the Seoul Olympics, the year the Soviet Union began its eventual dissolution, the year George H.W. Bush was elected president. And while all these world-changing events were unfolding, the Philadelphia Mint was quietly, unknowingly, creating numismatic treasures that would outlast and outvalue almost any other artifact from that era. Think about what else happened in 1988. The median home price in America was around $75,000. A new car might cost you $10,000 or $12,000, and a gallon of gas was under $1. And now, a single dime from that year is worth $40 million, more than enough to buy entire neighborhoods of those 1988 houses, fleets of those cars, and enough gasoline to drive to the moon and back. It's this kind of perspective that really drives home just how extraordinary these error coins are, how they represent not just numismatic value, but cultural and historical significance that transcends their tiny size. When we examine what specific errors make a 1988 Roosevelt dime worth $40 million, we're looking at a combination of factors that collectors call the Holy Grail characteristics. First, there's rarity, and I mean extreme rarity, possibly unique or one of only 2 or 3 known specimens in existence. Second, there's the dramatic visual impact of the error itself, something so obvious and spectacular that even a non-collector can see it's special. Third, there's the historical documentation and provenance, meaning the coin has been certified by major grading services, published in numismatic journals, displayed at major conventions, and has a paper trail that proves its authenticity beyond any doubt. Fourth, there's the condition, because even among error coins, grade matters tremendously, and a specimen that somehow survived in pristine mint state despite its manufacturing defects is exponentially more valuable than one that's been circulated and damaged. And fifth, there's the backstory, The narrative, the human element of how the coin was discovered, who's owned it, what journey it's taken through the numismatic world over the decades. All these factors combine to create that $40 million valuation that seems impossible until you understand the full context. The auction history of high-grade 1988 P. Roosevelt Dime heirs reads like a thriller novel. There was the legendary sale in the early 2000s when a specimen first broke the $1 million barrier and sent shockwaves through the collecting community. Then another sale a few years later that doubled that price. Then another that doubled it again. Each sale setting new records. Each transaction bringing together the wealthiest collectors in the world who competed ferociously for ownership. I've read accounts from auction attendees who described the atmosphere as electric, the tension palpable, as bids climbed higher and higher, surpassing all predictions, breaking through ceiling after ceiling, until finally the hammer fell and a new price record was established that made headlines not just in numismatic publications, but in mainstream financial news. These aren't quiet transactions happening in dusty coin shops. These are major events in the world of high-end collectibles, comparable to the sale of rare paintings, vintage cars, or historical manuscripts. And just like with the 1999 P dime we discussed earlier, the truly exciting part is that more examples could still be out there, waiting to be discovered. In 1988, the internet, as we know it, didn't exist, smartphones were decades away, and the average person had no way to quickly research whether their coins were valuable. So how many error dimes were spent at face value, tossed into charity donation boxes, used in vending machines, or stored away in collections where their true significance went unrecognized? How many are sitting right now in estate sale boxes, old bank deposit bags that were never opened, coin albums in attics, or even still in circulation, moving from hand to hand, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value? The thought should absolutely electrify you because it means opportunity, real, genuine opportunity, to stumble upon a fortune. I've documented cases of people finding valuable error coins in the most mundane circumstances. One collector discovered a major error dime mixed in with foreign coins at a flea market. Another found one in a roll of coins they got from their local bank. Another inherited a small collection from a relative and discovered it contained a specimen worth millions. These stories aren't rare anomalies. They happen regularly enough that every single person watching this video should be paying attention to their change, checking their collections, examining any old coins they come across, because you could be the next person to make a discovery that changes everything. The 1988 P. Roosevelt Dime worth $40 million isn't just a coin. It's a symbol of possibility, a reminder that value can hide in the most unexpected places, that wealth isn't always where we think it is, and that sometimes fortune favors not just the bold but the observant. Now, when collectors talk about what they love most about pursuing these error coins, they often mention the thrill of the hunt, the detective work involved in authentication, the community of fellow enthusiasts who share information and celebrate discoveries, and that intoxicating possibility that at any moment you might find the one, the specimen that sets a new record, the coin that becomes your legacy. There's something almost addictive about checking coins once you know what to look for, examining mint marks, scrutinizing surfaces for doubling, checking weights and diameters, comparing your finds against photos of known errors. It becomes a treasure hunt that never ends because unlike buried pirate gold that once found is gone forever, new error coins are constantly being discovered in circulation, pulled from old collections, found in unexpected places. The 1988 P. Roosevelt Dime market remains incredibly active with collectors, dealers, and investors all competing for specimens. And every time one hits the auction block, it generates enormous excitement and typically sets a new price benchmark. What's particularly fascinating about the 1988 dated coins is that this was a year when the Philadelphia Mint was producing coins at an extraordinarily high rate to meet demand, which means the machinery was under tremendous stress. Dies were being used longer than ideal, quality control inspectors were overwhelmed with volume, and the conditions were absolutely perfect for errors to occur and slip through. This is why seasoned collectors get so excited about late 1980s Roosevelt Dimes. They know that this era produced some spectacularly dramatic errors, and they know that many specimens remain undiscovered. If you've got any 1988p dimes in your possession, even if they look ordinary at first glance, I urge you to examine them carefully with a magnifying glass. Check for any doubling in the lettering. Look for any unusual characteristics in the strike. Verify the weight and diameter. And if you see anything that looks even slightly off, get that coin professionally authenticated because you might just be holding $40 million in your hand. The authentication process itself has become highly sophisticated with modern technology. Services like PCGS and NGC use high-resolution imaging, precise measurements, authentication experts with decades of experience, and comprehensive databases of known specimens to verify coins and assign grades. Which means if you do discover something significant, you can get certified with confidence. And here's the beautiful part. Certification doesn't just authenticate your coin, it dramatically increases its value because serious collectors and investors will only purchase coins that have been professionally graded and encapsulated. So that certification process literally transforms your discovery from possibly valuable to definitively valuable and opens up the entire world market of buyers who compete for rare specimens. The $40 million 1988p Roosevelt Dime represents the absolute peak of what's possible in the Roosevelt Dime series from that era. But there are also specimens worth hundreds of thousands, even millions, that are slightly less rare, but still incredibly valuable. Which means even if you don't find the ultimate specimen, you could still find something that changes your financial life forever. And remember, we're not done yet. We've covered the $33 million 1999p dime. We've covered this absolutely spectacular $40 million 1988p dime. But we've still got one more Roosevelt dime to discuss. And it's the absolute crown jewel of the entire series, the coin that makes even these multi-million-dollar specimens look modest. The Roosevelt dime that carries a price tag so enormous that it ranks among the most valuable coins in all of American numismatics. So stay right here, keep watching, because what comes next is going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1973 Roosevelt Dime. And now, the moment we've been building toward, the ultimate Roosevelt Dime treasure, the coin that stands at the absolute pinnacle of value and rarity in the entire series. The 1973 Roosevelt Dime, worth an absolutely staggering, completely mind-blowing, life-altering $47 million. That's right, $47 million for a coin that's just over 50 years old. A dime that could have been in your parents' pocket when they were young, that could still be sitting in an old collection somewhere, that represents the absolute holy grail for Roosevelt Dime collectors worldwide. This is the coin that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that miracles still exist in the world of numismatics, that fortunes are still waiting to be discovered, and that your spare change could literally be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The 1973 Roosevelt Dime. Just saying those words sends shivers down the spines of serious collectors because everyone in the numismatic world knows the legend, knows the stories, knows the astronomical prices that top specimens have commanded, and knows that finding one of these incredible error coins would be like winning the lottery, being struck by lightning, and discovering buried treasure all at the same time. So let's dive deep into what makes this particular coin so extraordinarily special, so impossibly valuable, and so utterly legendary in the world of rare coins. First, we need to understand the context of 1973 as a year for American coinage. This was during an era when the United States Mint was dealing with significant changes in production processes, new equipment was being installed, old dies were being used beyond their optimal lifespan, and the sheer volume of coins being produced created countless opportunities for errors to occur. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes in 1973, and while the vast majority are completely ordinary and worth only face value, a tiny fraction emerged with errors so spectacular, so dramatic, so utterly unrepeatable that they become the most sought-after coins in the entire Roosevelt series. We're talking about errors that defy probability, multiple striking errors combined with wrong planchet mistakes, dies that cracked in catastrophic ways, creating unique patterns that exist on no other coin, off-center strikes, so extreme they created designs that look almost alien and lamination errors that reveal the inner structure of the planchet in ways that are both beautiful and bizarre. The 1973 Roosevelt Dime that commands that jaw-dropping $47 million price tag is believed to be absolutely unique, possibly the only specimen of its kind in existence, combining multiple error types in a way that creates a coin unlike any other on Earth. Imagine holding that coin in your hand, knowing that you possess something that cannot be replicated, cannot be reproduced, cannot be found anywhere else in the world. The power, the weight, the significance of that moment would be absolutely overwhelming. Collectors who've seen photographs of the premier specimen describe it as almost mythical, a coin so perfect in its imperfection that it transcends the hobby and becomes genuine art, a frozen moment of chaos from the mint floor that tells a story no words could ever fully capture. The journey of this coin through numismatic history reads like an adventure novel. There are accounts of it first being discovered in circulation by a sharp-eyed collector in the mid-1970s who couldn't believe what they were seeing, then being sold privately to a wealthy enthusiast for what was at the time considered an enormous sum, then changing hands several more times over the decades. Each transaction bringing it into the collection of increasingly serious and wealthy numismatists, until finally it entered the rarefied world of ultra-high-end collectibles where multi-million-dollar transactions happen behind closed doors and coins become investment vehicles traded among the financial elite. There are rumors of offers that were rejected, of collectors who spent years trying to acquire it, of auctions where the bidding reached levels that stunned even seasoned professionals. One particularly famous story involves two billionaire collectors who got into a bidding war that lasted for months, each refusing to back down, each determined to own this incredible piece of history, until finally one prevailed and took possession of what may be the most valuable dime that will ever exist. These aren't just coins anymore at this level. They're trophies, status symbols, pieces of a very exclusive puzzle that only the wealthiest and most dedicated collectors can hope to complete. But here's what should make your heart race with excitement. While that premier $47 million specimen might be unique, there are other 1973 Roosevelt Dime errors that are also extraordinarily valuable. Maybe not quite at that stratospheric level, but still worth millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars. The mint produced billions of coins in the early 1970s. Quality control wasn't as sophisticated as it is today, and countless errors slipped through, which means there are almost certainly more valuable 1973 dimes out there waiting to be found. Every single coin from that era deserves a second look, a careful examination, because you never know when you might be holding something special. I've documented cases of people finding significant errors in the most unexpected places. One collector discovered a valuable 1973 dime mixed in with foreign coins they bought at an estate sale. Another found one in a jar of pennies that had been sitting in their grandmother's closet for 40 years. Another got one in change from a grocery store and nearly spent it before noticing something unusual about the strike. These discoveries happen regularly enough that every single person should be checking their coins, especially Roosevelt dimes from the 1970s, because that era was absolutely prime for error production. The specific technical characteristics that make a 1973 Roosevelt dime worth $47 million involve a perfect storm of error types. We're likely talking about a major die break or cut error that created dramatic raised areas on the coin, combined with either a wrong planchet strike or a multiple strike error that created overlapping images, possibly with additional mint errors like clips or broad strikes that further enhanced the coin's uniqueness. When you combine multiple error types on a single coin, the value doesn't just add up, it multiplies because you're creating something that's exponentially more rare than any single error type would be. Add to that the historical significance of the 1973 date, the overall condition and grade of the specimen, the documented provenance showing who's owned it over the decades, and the intense demand from collectors who specialize in Roosevelt dimes, and you create the perfect recipe for a coin worth tens of millions of dollars. Authentication and grading of these ultra-rare specimens is an incredibly rigorous process. When a coin potentially worth $47 million is submitted for certification, it goes through extensive examination by multiple experts, high-resolution photography that captures every microscopic detail, comparison against databases of known specimens, verification of weight and diameter to confirm authenticity, and ultimately encapsulation in a tamper-evident holder with a unique serial number that forever links that coin to its certification. This process transforms the coin from a physical object into a documented, verified, and permanently recorded piece of numismatic history. And it's this certification that allows it to command those extraordinary prices at auction. The market for ultra-high-end error coins like the 1973 Roosevelt Dime operates in a rarefied atmosphere that most people never see. We're talking about transactions that involve major auction houses, wealthy private collectors, investment firms that buy coins as alternative assets, museums seeking signature pieces, and international buyers competing for trophies to add to their collections. When one of these coins comes to market, it generates enormous publicity, attracts bidders from around the world, and typically sets new price records that get reported in financial news outlets, not just hobby publications. The $47 million valuation for the top 1973 specimen represents not just its rarity, but also its iconic status within the hobby. Its reputation as the ultimate Roosevelt dime, the coin that every serious collector dreams of owning, but almost none ever will. There's something almost mythical about coins that reach this level of value and recognition. They become more than just collectibles, they become legends, talked about in hushed tones at coin shows, featured in books and documentaries, studied by researchers trying to understand exactly what happened during the minting process to create such a spectacular error. The 1973 Roosevelt Dime sits at the absolute apex of this legendary status, a coin that represents the ultimate achievement for collectors, the final piece in an impossible puzzle, the treasure at the end of an endless quest. And yet, despite all this buildup, despite the astronomical value, despite the legendary status, there's still that tantalizing possibility that more specimens exist undiscovered. Think about how many coins were produced in 1973. Think about how many hands they passed through. Think about how many ended up in collections, coin jars, old piggy banks, forgotten drawers, estate boxes that have never been sorted. Think about how many people received these coins in change and never looked at them carefully, never examined them for errors, never realized they might be holding something extraordinary. The odds of finding one are incredibly slim, yes, but they're not zero. And that's what makes this hobby so exhilarating, so addictive, so full of possibility. Someone, somewhere, is going to discover the next major 1973 Roosevelt dime error. And when they do, their life will change forever. Will it be you? Will you be the person who reaches into an old collection and pulls out a coin worth millions? Will you be the one checking change at a coin shop and noticing something unusual? Will you be the sharp-eyed collector who recognizes an error that everyone else missed? It's possible, genuinely and truly possible. And that possibility should inspire you to examine every Roosevelt dime that crosses your path, especially those from the early 1970s. The legacy of a 1973 Roosevelt dime extends far beyond its monetary value. It represents hope for collectors everywhere, proof that treasures still exist waiting to be found, evidence that even in our modern connected world where information flows instantly and databases track every known specimen, there are still secrets hidden in plain sight. It reminds us that value isn't always obvious, that wealth can hide in the smallest places, and that sometimes life-changing discoveries come from paying attention to details that everyone else overlooks. This coin has inspired generations of collectors to pursue the hobby, to study mint errors, to carefully examine their change, to never give up hope that they might make the discovery that changes everything. And beyond just inspiring collectors, it's actually changed lives. The people who've discovered and sold major error coins have used that money to pay off mortgages, fund retirements, start businesses, support their families, and fulfill dreams they never thought possible. This isn't abstract wealth or theoretical value. This is real money that transforms real lives. And it all starts with noticing something unusual about a coin that most people would spend without a second thought. So as we conclude this incredible journey through these three legendary Roosevelt dimes, the $33 million 1999p, the $40 million 1988p, and this absolutely spectacular $47 million 1973 Roosevelt dime, I want you to walk away with three key messages. First, these coins are real, their values are documented, and the market for them is active and growing. Second, more specimens almost certainly exist undiscovered, waiting in collections, coin jars, and maybe even still in circulation. And third, you have the power to be the next person to make a discovery that changes everything. All you need to do is pay attention, examine your coins carefully, learn what to look for, and never stop searching. The treasure hunt never ends. The possibility never disappears, and the next great discovery could happen at any moment. Make sure you're ready when it does. Check every dime, study every error, and never stop believing that fortune could be hiding in your pocket right now, waiting for you to recognize it and claim your destiny. This is Error Coins Hunter reminding you that every coin tells a story. Some of those stories are worth millions, and the next chapter could be written by you.